look of Tron. It's very precise. At first it seems very confining, but at the same time, within those parameters is where you get your best design, your best innovations. And from that, we can develop a lot of stuff, like our main villain, Abraxas, is completely developed inside this house. From our concept artist to our character art director, through our team, to show how far we can actually push the IP and still have everyone go, yeah, that's Tron, that's cool.
Because of the third-person shift that we took, you really do have to feel a lot more concrete in the world, right? You have to feel a sense of place that maybe you don't when you're in a first-person shooter.
We're going to use reflections to ground the character to the world, to show how he's interacting with the world. So we started working with that and found out that if we had just the whole world reflecting on him, it became noise. What we had to do then was pull back and figure out what's important to reflect, what's important to help illustrate the form, but at the same time still inform that you're in an environment. So we started stripping everything out and then putting in just key things to reflect off the character, to ground him, to make him feel like you're walking by a lamppost, but at the same time it's not noise. And it was actually in reduction that we found our characters, we found our models, we found our world.
From an artistic standpoint, it's been incredibly creatively satisfying.
Tron Evolution does have such a distinct look in terms of its reflectivity. Don't think there's anything out there right now that even comes close to what we're doing. For the most part, hearing the actors recite the dialogue was kind of a bizarre and humbling experience. You know, when you get actors and actresses like Olivia Wilde and Bruce Boxleitner back into the studio and hear them really reprising their roles and really enjoying what they're doing and, you know, sort of becoming one with that character, it does put a sort of lump in your throat.
Eradicating this virus has to be the priority.
Flynn, you should leave the grid. It's an unnecessary risk being here while we resolve the situation.
After we all left her at the end of the original Tron movie, we were all the young Turks that took over ENCOM from old Mr. Dillinger.
It wouldn't be a party without a gatecrasher. Stop her before she gets too far.
The characters in the story of a movie, you're concentrating on interaction between people in a world that is very contained, whereas in a video game, you're interacting with the audience.
I like the fact that I can play with the words and I can sit there and I can hear it back immediately, and if I don't like it, you know, you change it up a little bit and you can kind of work around the lines. I like that kind of pliability with the words, whereas if you're doing a scene on camera, you really have to kind of dive into the script and listen to the other person. It's a totally different element.
Time for a new course. Find a service tunnel. You'll be able to move through the city's subsystem undetected.
When you play the game, you're guided by Cora, who not only kind of aids you in teaching you how to use your weapons, also gives you clues as to how to move through the grid faster and how to find your way. She's very kind of wise and experienced at the same time as being this really enthusiastic kind of coach.
No entry without proper authorization.
Fine, then I'll get authorization.
Greetings. Abraxas is just full of hatred and anger and fury, and he wants to destroy everyone else.
The timing couldn't be better because it's something that everybody can relate with now. I mean, we're living in a very, very computerized generation where everybody understands computers.
There's a certain element of finding your identity, where you stand, who you are. We're all eternally that way. In many ways, that adolescence never leaves us. And we're all still struggling, no matter what age you are, to find out, who am I really?
Abraxas is angry, twisted. So I believed in the joy of causing pain to other people.
It's your time. Embrace it.
When you see Radia's performance and you see Cora's performance in our cinematics, it brings it all home and brings out humanity. And that's bringing the geekiness and the humanity and trying to tie those together.
The original story was just such a mind-blowing event. You know, this guy that gets sucked into a computer and has to fight programs that he didn't make, and we knew that the stories had to be the key focus.
Only Flynn and I know the location of the download.
The story takes place between the original film in 1982 and the upcoming film Tron Legacy. And we tell the series of seismic events that happen in the universe that surround the birth of your character, a player called Anon, and how he fits into the entire universe. Kevin Flynn has come to the realization that he's lost a little bit of control. And he creates you to go into the world to try and wrestle some of that control back and basically figure out what's going on.
Reinforcements have arrived. Greetings, program.
Kevin Flynn has realized this need for a stronger system monitor who can adapt and has these different abilities that the other programs don't necessarily have. And so he's built that into you. And there's hints of that in the other programs that you run into, but it's all brought together in your character.
Anon pretty much is a single hero against the odds. He has his companion Cora, who plays an enormous role in both our game and the mythology as a whole.
She looks determined to get into trouble.
There's so much thought that's been put into the political situation of the world, the background of all the characters. There's so much kind of emotional intensity that it's a very rich world to be playing in. People will have fun being able to have their adventures in that world because it's not simple.
We must put aside grief. In the wake of loss, we must push forward for progress.
There's something really exciting about the idea of being able to transition into another world and that world closing around you. But you're putting it into the language of computers, which is our language. Once you get in there, there's all these adventures that can happen.
It's your time.
We literally came up with the entire mythology and chronology from 1982 all the way through to 2010. And then we looked at where do the story points hook from 82 to our game, and then from our game into Tron Legacy. So everything that you do in the game has a meaning and a purpose for when you actually see the film. Tron's such a beloved franchise, and the expectation is you better get the light cycles right, you better get the light disc right, you know. So that's one area that we've really spent a long time in development on.
This ain't your daddy's Tron. You see what the video game world looked like in the original Tron to where this new current one. We've come so far. The old Tron looks strangely innocent now, and we were so state-of-the-art at the time.
We work with computers all the time, and just the idea that there's a fantasy universe and things that we hold in our pockets, it's pretty enticing.
They were just starting to explore the emergence of technology and whether or not it would take over their lives. Now, we can safely say it has taken over our lives. It's exciting to be a part of that movement, to know that we are making something that will take people to another place, blow their minds, and will make them consider technology and its role in our lives.
You can clearly see the inspiration that the new movie and our game has going back to the original. I think a lot of our challenge is not losing that heart and soul, right?
A lot of people on this team, including myself, that have very fond memories of Tron and have put a lot of passion, a lot of effort into actually making the game, and I think that will come across when people pick up the game and go, wow, you know, these people actually really did care about what they would do.
When you get on the multiplayer, it's you versus other people in the Tron universe.
It's a load of fun just playing with your friends and playing competitively against other people.
We give you lots of tools: light tank, light cycle, discs, disc powers, capoeira, parkour.
You can go level up, get some new weapons, upgrade your character, and then you can just transfer into online with all of those things. So it takes away a lot of the barrier to entry that some games have in terms of segregation between the single player and the online.
We really wanted single player to be the training grounds for multiplayer. We took strategies that you'll use in multiplayer and we use those as a basis for our AI opponents. So you learn strategies to deal with those AI types, and then when you get into multiplayer, you see players employing the strategies, you know what to do.
You could find yourself spawning into a level, transform into a light cycle at any time, zoom to where you need to be, whether it's an objective, whether it's a deathmatch situation. You see energy lines or you see a tank, you can dismount, and in midair, you can run up a wall.
When you're in the Game Grid games, you'll never know whether you're playing AIs or whether you're playing humans.
If you're adept enough and skilled enough with any of the 3 light cycles in multiplayer, you could potentially do a 180. So that opens up a lot more tactical flexibility.
It's actually a lot of fun to get online and play against 9 other guys with the light disc, the light cycle, and the light tank. We knew that high mobility combat had needed to be the epicenter of all of what we were doing. We were looking for a very unique style of movement, and we started looking at martial arts in the world, and capoeira was really the closest that we could come to that didn't have a stance where you would move from one stance to a move and then back to a stance again. Capoeira is very much about fluidity of movement and perpetual movement.
We wanted to fuse the mobility in combat, bounce off walls, jump on people, fire all these discs and then leap. And so for us, looking at capoeira and free running made perfect sense.
One of the key mantras for the team as we were moving through this process was mobility is life. So everything we've created in the world actually allows us to live that mantra day in, day out. You run on walls to gain energy to keep you alive. You jump over objects to give you energy for your special weapons. And this really keeps the player mobile at all points.
We put in some gameplay hooks to really entice the player to get out of one spot, explore the environment, and really use mobility as a tool in combat.
One of the most challenging things that we came across was our first light cycle experience. That was just a seat of your pants experience that we wanted to create. So lots of destruction, lots of stuff going on.
Light cycles, the biggest change for them is that the vehicle is much more updated in terms of physics. You could potentially do a 180, and you can throw your light disc from the light cycle.
So we'll have levels where crazy stuff going on, buildings falling, things exploding around you, and then all of a sudden you've got to hop into a light tank, and it's a different game entirely.
There's definitely the aggressive way to go. You just go in and bulldoze your way through with your light disc and nothing else. You can play more defensive and really make use of those disc powers and be more strategic, or you can do a combination of both.
Each vehicle is its own game. It impacts us on how we create the physics representations for these different vehicles and how the game designers will tune those vehicles and make sure that they actually behave the way that we want them to.
I think we realized we hit the sweet spot for the high mobility combat when we literally picked it up one day and we're like, wow, I have never seen this done in a video game before.